Hey, good morning. Nice to look out, see a few new faces this morning. Some old faces. How many of you have a new face? How many of you have an old face? It's nice to see the Romeros here after their car accident a few weeks ago and surgery, so we're grateful you're here this morning. Wonderful. Some of you don't know it yet, but this is your last Sunday here. I'm going to say something that just puts you over the edge. Today is the day. No, I'm just kidding. Well, maybe, I don't know, but it is good to see everybody. My name is Ryan. If you're a guest this morning, online or in the room, welcome to a church that cares deeply for people who feel spiritually disconnected or disenfranchised or who might be deconstructing their faith. And it is my privilege to serve as the lead pastor here. And my pronouns, like I mentioned, are he, him. I'm a white, cisgendered, heterosexual man who has benefited from systems that have favored people like me. And as a follower of Jesus, I believe naming those privileges and leveraging them for others is the start of a life committed to the peacemaking path of Jesus and to justice, or what Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. Philippians chapter 2 tells us that Christ, the living Christ, who had every status imaginable, let go of it all and took the form of a servant. And that's the path that we are trying to walk here at Crossroads Church. So, whoever you are, however you've come into today, whether you are certain or skeptical, hopeful or hurting, you're welcome here. And I do hope that you will join us as we just attempt to walk the peacemaking path of Jesus together, which these days feels like sometimes I swerve off that path. It can be challenging, right? Let me ask you a question this morning as we're jumping into our topic. How many of you have ever had a moment when you've kind of gone through something and you realize nobody is coming to rescue me? Right? That like, wow, I am alone in this, right? You thought there was a system that was set up to kind of help you, and maybe that system failed. You had a timeline in place for your life, your career, and that timeline collapsed. Through no fault of your own, through circumstances that were out of your control, but you just felt all of a sudden very much like the next thing is going to be up to me. There's no help. I've thrown up the bat signal, and Batman is busy doing all kinds of other things. And you've experienced that moment where the next step, the very next step, is going to have to come from you. But the challenge with that is many of us have been taught that hope comes from waiting, that there's a passivity to hope. And we hear things like waiting for God, or waiting for healing, or waiting for circumstances to change, or my favorite, I'm just waiting for the right moment. But here's the thing, what we've experienced actually oftentimes, and what we kind of, if I can be a little blunt, let we hide behind those things. Why do we do that? Well, because when we go through life and we experience trauma, whether it's big T trauma or a whole series of little t traumas, whether we've experienced disappointment, pain, whatever happens, those experiences oftentimes steal our sense of agency. And when our sense of agency is stolen, sometimes it feels safer and it's easier to just say, well, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on that next. I'm waiting on just the right moment. And when life wounds us deep enough, we just have a tendency to stop believing that even if I take the next step, is it really going to matter? Have you ever felt like that? Like, can I really make a difference here in my life? Is it going to matter everything I try? And so we begin to live as if we're just kind of like stuck characters in somebody else's story. We're just supporting Cass. Like it doesn't, and this is somebody else's story that I'm just kind of being drug along through. But for hope to take shape in our lives, there's something that we have to do that feels counterintuitive. Because sometimes when we don't believe that our next move matters, and it's in that moment when we don't believe that anything we do matters, where shame is screaming at us. We talked about this last week. Shame is saying, stay small, stay quiet, stay where you are, don't move. But for hope to take shape, hope whispers something very different. Hope says, I dare you. And that's what this song is all about. Check it out.
Welcome to the planet. Welcome to existence. Everyone's here. Everyone's here. Everybody's watching you now. Everybody waits for you now. What happens next? What happens next? I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened before. Welcome to the fallout. Welcome to resistance. The tension is here. The tension is here. It's between who you are and you could be. Between how it is and how it should be. Yeah, I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened. Or maybe redemption is stories to tell. And maybe forgiveness is right where you fell. Where can you run to escape from yourself? Or where you gonna go? Where you gonna go? Salvation is here. I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up on the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened. Today never happened. Today never happened before.
But the problem is, in that moment where shame is screaming, stay quiet, stay still, the last thing we want to do is move. The last thing we want to do is look past what all the evidence tells us. When all the evidence tells us that what we say and what we do doesn't matter, that we're never going to get out of this circumstance, this situation, faith says you got to move forward. Because here's the thing, the most dangerous moment for despair in our lives, the most dangerous moment for shame in our lives is when we come to the realization, I still have choices. I still have choices. I still can choose to believe that this day hasn't happened before. That no matter what my heart wants to tell me, no matter what my experiences tell me, this is a new day. This is an opportunity that is in front of me that I haven't had before. There is a new door to try and kick through. And it's when we come to that space that I have a choice to make, to try, to press forward, to move, that hope can begin to take shape. And I want to look at a story we have in our scriptures today in Luke chapter 8 of a woman who had every reason to not move, had every reason to believe that it didn't matter what she did, how she thought, who she talked to, nothing was going to change. In Luke chapter 8, it says this, that there was a woman who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years, and that she had spent all she had on physicians, and no one could cure her. We see here, this woman models for us this idea of intersectionality of oppression. Right? That it's just one thing on top of the other. And to really understand the courage of this moment, to really get how hope took shape in this woman's life, we have to understand the world that she was living in. And that this woman was not just facing one hardship, that she was actually standing at the intersection of many in her life. She was a woman in a patriarchal society where women had very little social power. She was a woman with a chronic illness, which in her religious culture meant that she was ritually impure and had to stay away from the gathering of the community. And that meant that she was excluded from worship, community life, from normal touch, from normal belonging. Luke tells us that she had spent everything she had, literally everything she had, which wasn't much, trying to get better. And so by this point, not only was she sick, but she was poor. She had no more resources. So she's a woman. She's a sick woman. She's a poor and sick woman living in a culture where each of those identities carried its own form of marginalization. Today we have language for that. Scholars call it intersectionality. And it just simply means that sometimes people don't just suffer from one form of exclusion. Sometimes the burdens they stack on top of each other. Marginalization from gender, marginalization from health, differing abilities, economic vulnerability, religious exclusion, all those things intersecting into one life. And that means that this woman wasn't just suffering, physically. She was suffering socially, relationally, spiritually. She wasn't just sick. She'd been pushed to the edges by everything in her system. And that's what makes this story even more remarkable. Because hope didn't arrive when she asked for permission to move. Hope did not come because she said, well, within all of these systems that marginalize me, I need to wait for permission. No, hope begins when this woman who has been pushed to the margins decides to push back. No more. In that space, in that moment where she's lying on the floor, she has no hope, she decides, I'm going to push back. And the text tells us that she came up behind him. I love it. She snuck up on Jesus, put him in a chokehold. WWE sleeper, laid Jesus out. That would be a better story, honestly. But no, it says that she came up behind him and she touched just the fringe of his clothes, and immediately her hemorrhage stopped. With the crowd pressing in, what does she do? She pushes harder. Sometimes we have this image of this timid woman who's just kind of like creeping through the crowd. She's like, get out of my way. The crowd is pressing in and she's pushing. And in her life where anxiety and despair and cultural and religious rules had kept her boxed in, she was touching and pushing and pressing and moving people out of the way. This woman did not wait for permission or an invitation. She crashed the party. There was no priest that invited her, come, my child, to Jesus. Jesus didn't invite her. Jesus didn't say, come to me, all women who are hemorrhaging, and I will give you rest. No, he's doing his thing. The disciples are like doing crowd control. The crowd didn't welcome her. No system created a pathway for her. But hope took shape the moment she decides, I will not stay where my suffering has left me. When she woke up that morning and she said, why the hell not? Let's go. Let's go. And she got herself up and she pushed through that crowd. And the woman here, she makes this risky, embodied choice. I love that she doesn't go into her little prayer closet. Oh, man, see, I told you I was going to say something. Some of you are like, yeah, no, I'm out. Don't pull me out of my prayer closet, Ryan. What the heck? I've watched the movie. What was the name of that movie? I never saw it because I don't really watch Christian movies. What was it? The War. Oh, my God, it's worse than I thought. You wonder why we have people in our, oh, gosh. Sorry, Jesus. I'm going to go to my prayer closet. Nothing wrong with the prayer closet, but sometimes you got to come out of the closet. And sometimes it's not easy, right? And she does this. She's like, no, I'm pressing through, I'm moving through the crowd. And she reaches for Jesus' cloak. It's not a polite request, right? This isn't, well, I just got to get with Jesus and let him know my story. No, she's boundary crossing. She's courageously crossing the boundaries that her culture, that her religion, that her friends, that her family have all established for her. This is where you stay. Don't go any farther. And so what is she risking? She's risking public shame, religious rebuke, social humiliation, all the things that were part of her daily life. Every day she received that. And I love that she woke up that morning and was like, screw it. I'm going to experience it anyway. They're going to other me. They're going to push me to the margins. They're going to make me think I'm less than, so I may as well go after it. And because hope awakened in her body that morning, she moved towards healing. She said, I'm moving. I'm going for it. So she presses through the crowd. She reaches out, touches the cloak. She's healed. She's like, good, I'm out, right? I imagine like the touch, hey, look at that. And then she's leaving. Why wouldn't you, right? After years and years of being oppressed by this crowd, by these people, like just out. But Jesus stops and he asks this question, who touched me? And it says everybody denied it, probably her too. Everybody denied it. Peter says, come on, Master. Rabbi, what the heck? Come on. I thought you're smarter than this. The crowd, it surrounds you. It presses in on you. That tells you the scene that this woman has to press through. But Jesus said, no, somebody touched me because I noticed that power had gone out from me. Jesus says, somebody left their prayer closet. Somebody thought well enough to press through, to just get near me. And when the woman saw that she could not stay hidden, she came trembling. Courage always comes with trembling. If you're not trembling, you're not acting with courage. Do you know that? If you aren't shaken in your boots, then there's no courage involved. So she comes trembling and she falls down before him and she declares in the presence of all these people why she had touched him. Here's why I did it. And I've been healed now. And Jesus says, how dare you touch me? Now I'm unclean. Now I have to go through all the hoops. How dare you? No. Jesus says, daughter. And we have to, in a sense, recognize that this is such beautiful language for the time that it was in. This is not pejorative. It's not infantizing her. It's embracing her. Daughter. This one who had been excluded from every place that she was at. He says, daughter, your faith made you well. You chose to move. So go in peace. Go in wholeness. Go in fullness. And in that moment, Jesus, in his words, restores her voice and honors her agency. Restores her voice, honors her agency, and says, you have done this. You have made this happen. You've made it happen. When he stops, he says, who touched me? He knows that somebody has done something. It's not, I don't think the story wants us to imagine that Jesus doesn't know. I mean, the stories of Jesus want us to understand and see and think of Jesus in these superhuman terms, which I personally don't. But the stories are telling us that there was something so powerful about Jesus. That Jesus, in the way in which he moved in this world, reveals to us not what it means to be God, but to be human, to have faith, to live, to be what we call the incarnation of God, our best picture of what God looks like, to model for us. And the story wants us to always keep that in mind, that there was something about Jesus that was special. And so when Jesus says, who touched me? In the story, he's not asking it. In the parable, he's not asking it because he doesn't know, but because he knows that her story deserves to be told. That if the community is going to be changed, they need to hear her story. They need to know what they have done. They need to know that their oppression of her has been far more oppressive than the actual disease. See, the real healing that takes place here is not the curing of the hemorrhage, but it is the bringing back into the community. It is the welcoming of the outsider. The one who has been pushed to the margins now is daughter, is brought back in. And so she comes forward and she's trembling, and Jesus speaks these words that restore not just her body, but her dignity. Daughter, your faith has healed you. And for the first time in 12 years, her voice comes back. Might have crackled a little bit, but her story is centered. Her belonging returns. Why? Because she got up that morning and said, today has never happened. Today has never happened, and so I'm going to go after it today. And here's what I don't want us to miss as we talk about how hope takes shape in our lives. Hope takes shape when you remember, when I remember that you can still move. You can still move. You can still pick yourself up. There are choices that are in front of you. And that word move is really around this idea of choice. You have choices to make this day, tomorrow, the next day. It's a new choice. It might feel like the same options, but it is a new choice. And there are new circumstances that we can't even experience. There are new mercies that day that we don't know that we'll unlock and we'll tap into. And hope is not passive waiting. Hope is reclaimed movement. When life comes and smacks you across the face, cuts your legs right out from under you, and you feel like that's it, hope says, no, I still have a choice. I can reclaim my movement. And the story is so radical again because Jesus doesn't scold her. He doesn't say, you should have asked first. Should have got permission. He doesn't say, well, you broke the rules. You cheated. Maybe I didn't want to heal you. You stole that from me. None of that. Instead, he honors her courage, affirms her agency. And this is an invitation for us into our everyday, normal peacemaking lives to live with that intention, to move, to make the choice. Hope researcher, hope scientist, I believe there's a whole science on hope. And there's a hope researcher, his name is C.R. Snyder, and he was really the pioneer of hope research, and he discovered something really profound. And he said that hope is made up of three things. Goals, right? For hope to exist, you have to have goals. You have to have a vision for a better future. You have to be able to see pathways, right? Hope requires pathways, possible routes forward. So you can't just have a goal without any chance of getting there, right? That's not hope, that's a dream. Some of you are like, I'm going to be an astronaut, and you're 72 years old. I'm like, no, you're not. That's not hope, right? Be like, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm like, no, you're not, Ryan. You suck at biology. It's not happening, right? I mean, there is a difference between hope and dreams, and we need all of it. But hope that really empowers us, that gets us up, that gets us moving, right? Says you got to have a goal, you got to be able to see the pathway, and probably most importantly, because it's my topic this week, so I get to say it's the most important one, and Aisha and everybody else can say whatever is most important. Brooke can say hers is most important, but my topic is most important, right? Agency. You have to believe that you can move forward on those paths. You have to believe it. Without agency, the whole thing collapses in on itself. But here's the really fascinating part. Agency doesn't return through this big heroic act. Right? There is no like hero shot in your life where the music starts and you walk in slow motion. That's movie stuff, right? Like, there's never that. I mean, it'd be great if it was. But agency returns through small movements of control, small decisions, small risks, small steps. And each one of those, the research tells us, rebuilds the brain's hope pathways, the neural pathways that establish a sense of hope. That woman said, I'm going to wake up this morning. Somehow she heard Jesus was in town and decided, I'm going to go see. And then when she got there, she must have made some other choice to say, I'm going to get a little closer. And then something inside of her welled up and said, well, just maybe. And so she started pushing away. I'm really proud of myself for not pushing you. I need an object to push out of the way, you know. But she says, but I got to get there. She takes these little steps to get to the cloak, to get to the garment, to touch it. So let me ask you this question this morning. What's the cloak that you need to touch? What's the cloak that you need to reach for? And that garment, that cloak may feel so far away. But at first you got to say, what is it? Where is it that you have a desire, a vision? And maybe you even kind of see a little bit of a pathway, but you just feel like it doesn't matter. And maybe hope takes shape for you right now through just a small choice. Maybe it's just making that appointment, sending the message, setting a boundary. The very next small step, signing up for that first class. I want to be here, but how do I go? We get so overwhelmed with all the things that have to take place, but you just got to take the next step. What's the very next thing? Is it a conversation? Is it a little bit of research? Is it going to your prayer closet? What is it? I don't know, you do. What's the very next thing that can start you into that space? Before the woman decided to reach out for Jesus' cloak and touch it, before she decided to leave the house, she just had to decide to get dressed. She had to choose to get out of bed. And when we make that first choice, when we make that first step, oh my gosh, we become better people. The world becomes a better place because we've just chosen to move with courage. Because our courageous move leads to what? The next courageous move. The first one can be the most difficult. The first move can be the one that you feel is the most futile. Why even get out of bed today? I get it. But maybe that's just the first choice. But we know from history, we know from people that inspire us that it's just one small courageous move that leads to the next courageous move. And sometimes it's not your next courageous move, it's that you've inspired somebody else to their next courageous move. In 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks made one courageous decision. She refused to give up her seat. It looked like just one small act, one woman, one seat, one quiet moment of resistance, but that decision triggered a chain reaction, and her arrest led to the Montgomery bus boycott, and that boycott lasted 381 days, and a young pastor named Martin Luther King Jr. emerged as a national leader for civil rights. And eventually, the Supreme Court ruled bus segregation unconstitutional. Why? Because one small decision that was really difficult Small doesn't mean easy. And it reshaped the nation. Rosa Parks didn't know she was starting a movement. She hadn't laid out a 7-step plan of resistance. She just said, enough. I'm not going to continue to stay in this space. And so, I'm not going to move, which was an act of moving. No. And she simply made the next courageous choice that was available to her. James Clear, who's the author of the book Atomic Habits, tells us a story about a man who in his life, he wanted to get in shape, wanted to get healthier, but he felt overwhelmed by the idea of it. And he couldn't commit himself to going to an hour at the gym. He made one small rule. He said, I'm just going to go to the gym for 2 minutes. I'm just going to go for 2 minutes, and that's it. And so for the first week, he literally walked in, and he stood there for 2 minutes. And then he left. But that small action did something powerful psychologically. It reshaped. It rebuilt agency. And 2 minutes became 10 minutes, and 10 minutes became workouts, and workouts became a lifestyle, and his life changed. Not because of one heroic decision with the music in the background and the slow motion, but because of a tiny act that reopened the neural pathways of hope. I'm just going to go stand in there for 2 minutes and take a look around. I'm going to go look. See, sometimes healing doesn't begin with this grand miracle. Sometimes it begins with 2 minutes of courage. I've always loved what Navy Admiral William McRaven told graduates. He said, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. Because when you make your bed, you've completed one task that leads to another task, and then another, and then another, and by the end of the day, you realize something powerful. He says you can move your life forward one decision at a time. And I love that he says, and if the day goes badly, you come home to a bed you made. Which reminds you, you can start again tomorrow. Because that day has never happened before. For hope to take shape in our lives, we have to move. We have to believe that it matters when everything around us says it doesn't. So, what is it that God's inviting you into today? As we move into a time of reflection and communion where we hold these elements, this juice and the bread, alcohol-free, gluten-free, as we hold these in our hands and as we consider the invitation that the life and the death and the resurrection and the teachings and the stories that people told about Jesus, what they invite us into today around hope as we hold them, what is God inviting you into today? Maybe it's to start small. Just explore a little bit more. Maybe it's to listen to, there's a great podcast episode called Building Atomic Habits from the Rethinking podcast with Adam Grant. If you'd like to listen to that, you can check the box. We'll send you a link, make it real easy, but maybe just listen to that this week. Maybe you're like, well, I can make a little more. Yeah. Maybe you take a step to reclaim your agency and you choose one step you've been avoiding and you just take action this week. One step. Whatever it is, one thing. Maybe the invitation for you is to extend hope to someone else, help someone else move. Maybe you need to be the one wearing the garment. Maybe you need to be the person who is in proximity that you can actually encourage, and your story can help and challenge, and you can listen and be present. Our song today during communion is the song we've done many, many times. And this song speaks to the real temptation that is to just sit in a space like this and feel the warm fuzzies. To go into our prayer closets and feel the presence and to feel that. And there's a temptation to just stay there. That we could just sit and we could be and it's wonderful. But this thing that we call Christian faith, the way we understand it here, is a call to follow, a call to action, a call to move. And so we go and we follow as individuals, as a community, where there is opportunity to bring hope into darkness, whether it's our own lives or someone else's. So I love the lyric in this song that says, you've called me higher, you've called me deeper, and I'll go where you lead me. And if you're like me and maybe those personal pronouns are a little challenging with God at times, I just sing, love has called me higher, love has called me deeper, and I will go where love leads me. That's the life I choose to live. And sometimes that's hard and difficult, and I fail miserably. I'd appreciate if you wouldn't talk to my wife or my children. But I'm just choosing. We got to just choose to get there. So if you're in the room today, if you're at home, I encourage you to just breathe a little bit over the next few moments. If you're able to, I want to invite you to stand, even if the communion elements are at your table this morning. I know it's kind of weird. You're like, but then I have to bend over, and I got a bad back. I get it. Maybe pick it up before you stand up, But I want to invite everybody to stand this morning because I do want to invite you to move. You get it? Okay. So we're gonna do like a little movement. We're gonna embody this today. So if you're at a table and you have your communion elements in front of you, when you're done receiving communion, I would encourage you to move over to our faux candles and to light a candle that represents that one next move that you're going to make. And let your movement today be a symbol. Let your movement today be a choice, a commitment that this week I will act. No matter how small it is, I will act. That you'll light that candle. So that's our invitation today. I want to see everybody moving. Otherwise, I'm going to re-preach this message. Slower, not nearly as funny. I'm going to bring in a whole lot of hell, fire. So it's your choice. This is a choose your own adventure moment, right? The body of Christ, broken for every person in this space. There is no class to take. There's no doctrine to believe in. There is only hope to be received in this moment. You're welcome to these elements that remind us of what radical love looks like when we lay down our lives, not only for our friends, but for our enemies. That's the invitation of Jesus. That's the difficult life of walking the peacemaking path. But it is a life worth living. So you're invited to the table today, the body of Christ broken for you, the blood of Christ shed for you.